Oh yeah, the world's a roller coaster, and I am not strapped in. Maybe I should hold with care, but my hands are busy in the air saying, I wish you were here. I wish you were here. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, from deep in the bowels of our underground lair where we're floating 300 balloons with spy equipment on them, and they're all going free. They're all going everywhere.
Yeah, what do you make of that story? You think that's true?
Yeah, I do.
It's a balloon that just...
I mean...
What, a Chinese hot air balloon? Wouldn't it go the opposite direction, though? Like it's like a Pollock? Wouldn't it go right to left?
I don't know. But, I mean, it was sighted first in Canada, and then... Alaska.
So how did it get from Alaska to...
It, started... I don't know if they're able to put it, in whatever direction they want, or if it followed, kind of like the trade winds or whatever. Jetstream, that's what I was looking for, yeah. Why they waited until it was already gone across our country. I mean, there's a couple of streams of thought here. Why did the Canucks let it go then too?
Yeah,
I don't know. But when you think about it, any pictures that it would have gotten, they can get via satellite anyways, and probably better ones.
Yeah, Google Maps.
Well, that's kind of like a snapshot in time, though. I mean, if you're looking for things that don't move, if you're looking for things that move, you need kind of at the moment. But I'm sure that as it went, though, it was transmitting images and automatically, instantly deleting them. I think this was more about in the range that it was flying. It would have been perfect candidate to see if they could get an EMP into our country.
EMP being?
An electromagnetic pulse, which would knock out all of our computers and everything. It would ruin our chips.
Hey, like Jay Leno said, you have chips, we'll just make more.
Yeah, not these chips.
Are we that vulnerable to something like that?
Yes, and in fact...
It's funny. Wait a minute, Jay. It's funny. We spend billions of dollars on missile defense and on things like this, and a damn balloon comes over.
Yeah.
and can knock out an electric grid. I mean, that's...
Here's how bad this is, though. We had talked on this show about Event 201 before... when all the COVID stuff was happening, and how all the elites met in Davos. They wargamed the whole thing. What happens if there's a worldwide pandemic, and what do we do?
Isn't it strange how it came to fruition?
It is. They used a coronavirus in the example that they wargamed, and everything that they decided they needed to do, they did. From the masks to the lockdowns to all of it. They knew ahead of time how they wanted to handle this.
And here's the other thing: dividing the population.
Yes.
That's on purpose. That's the elites do that on purpose.
Right.
Get us fighting each other. We aren't fighting them.
Right. Here's the scary thing. Davos this year, the same group kind of came out of Davos saying that within 24 months, they expect there to be a catastrophic cyber attack that will knock out power grids across the planet. And it will take, according to some people, as much as 5 years to get everything back up and running, because speed of getting them the parts we need and all of that. So we got that to look forward to.
Well, another reason to just get your own generator. How about that?
Exactly.
Get off the government-run monopoly and get on your own generator.
Yeah. Well, they're pushing everything over to electric, and we wonder why. I mean, we talked about also on this show about them wanting to knock out natural gas, and it finally came out that they're looking to do that at a federal level as well.
Yeah, well, they've been studying that for decades.
Yeah,
and the electric car isn't anything new. Go back to the 70s when we had the first the Yom Kippur War, when we had the first gas shortage, and we were told. I remember being told when I was in school, and I don't know that it was by any teacher with any agenda or anything like that. I don't really think so, but told when we get my age, we're going to be out of oil. We're going to have to, we're going to run out. Of course, it never came to fruition, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing, different dance here. And yet, strangely, they can't run electric cars without coal, which is I always laugh at.
Right.
So, Jay, well, go ahead with your.
Well, I was just going to say, it's not just about cars, though. It's about everything. It's about your stoves.
Your appliances.
Most of the restaurants, most of restaurants use natural gas. They don't use electric, and they can't use electric for what they do. So I don't know. It's a problem. We'll have to look into it more and maybe do a show about it.
I don't know. That's kind of depressing to look into. But
well,
we can't look into it because they'll knock our show out, and then we won't be able to do it.
Well, that's true too.
So when you say chips, I mean, what are you referring to exactly?
Computer chips.
Okay, so they're knocking out chips in businesses and in government, city hall, and in
more like the electrical grid.
Okay,
but I mean, with an EMP, or some sort of cyber, whether they explode a bomb in the air or they do it through a cyber attack. It can fry out a lot of the stuff in even our TVs, our electric cars, Yeah. A lot of that stuff can be destroyed pretty quick.
That's amazing that it's that easy, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
It's almost worse than a nuclear attack. I mean, people aren't losing their lives, but if you F up everything for 5 years, I mean, think about that for a minute. Think of all the things we use electricity for.
Yeah.
And just don't even think about it. Whether that's at work, whether that's at home, whether,
Name something you don't use it for.
That's pretty tough.
I mean, at this point, most lawnmowers and snowblowers are still combustion engines. Most boats are still combustion engines. I guess an electric toothbrush is battery operated. You're probably okay there.
God, what about my shaver? I'm going to have to go back to the carving my face. Yeah,
I don't think that's high on the priority.
Red flag laws on shavers or knives.
Right.
By the way, I have no idea on the song, and I just totally forgot what it was anyway.
That's all right. Incubus, Wish You Were Here.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yeah.
They start with an E, right?
I.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Incubus.
Yes.
Jay, have you been reading about this earthquake that happened?
Yeah, I saw a little bit.
The death toll is in the thousands now.
Yeah.
Which I knew was going to happen, but I mean, originally it's 20 people, 50 people. I mean, just a seismic, horrible earthquake.
Right.
It got me to thinking, what is the most memorable earthquake that you recall in your life? I know you went to Haiti.
Yes, I did.
Is that the one that sticks out for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I went after that one and seeing the pictures of what it looks like in Turkey and Syria, it took me right back because everything was just rubble,
Right. Haiti, not exactly the richest nation on earth.
Oh, it's so poor. And that was only a 7.0. I mean, these were even stronger.
Right. Charles Francis Richter, my great uncle, the inventor of the Richter scale.
Yes.
So then we have I'm the descendant of that guy, the guy, captain of the Mayflower. I mean, just amazing the DNA that I possess.
Yes.
I mean,
it's a shame it's all
wasted. I know.
Congregated in one place like that. That leaves so little for the rest of us.
Yeah, well, I don't believe in socialism, so I'm not sharing it.
Okay.
So I mean, and I don't know if you and I have shared your Haiti experience on the air. Maybe we did a long time ago, but I mean, when you went there, I mean, that was in 2010 or 11, around that time?
That was 2010, yeah. It happened in 2010, and it happened in January. I went in July, I think, and everything was still They'd barely even started to clean things up by then.
Yeah, how do you even start?
Well, you need machines to do it.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
unfortunately, they have a very corrupt government, and
Horrible government there.
we had some corrupt people that were taking money on behalf of Haiti and doing who knows what with it. Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, always jerks involved.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's even recovered by now. I mean, who knows? Such a poor.
Yeah.
There's so much poverty there. It's just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think to whatever degree, Haiti ever recovers from anything, because it's poor. You can't even imagine.
I think when I think about earthquakes, the one that always stands out to me is the '89 World Series.
Yeah.
And that's the one that stands out to me, because the reason it stands out is you look back and it's so hard to take yourself from today and go back to a time and place where there was no internet, there was no cell phones, there was no instant news.
Right.
And I can remember it was Game 3, and the commentator, Al Michaels, who's the old Cardinals catcher, Tim MacGyver, and Jim Palmer. They were the same guys who did the '87 series with the Twins.
Right.
And here's what I remember. Okay, now I'm 12 years old, watching, and all of a sudden there's and the screen goes away.
Yeah.
Okay, now today you'd get on Twitter, you'd get on whatever, and what the hell's going on? Happened in the World Series. I'm sitting there looking at a blank screen. All of a sudden, like an episode of Growing Pains comes on. And I'm like, what is this? So finally, after the episode, I mean, I'm serious, like a half an hour later,
Yeah.
there's an update it was ABC, so I don't know if it was Jennings or somebody else who does an update saying, oh my goodness, there's been an earthquake at the World Series and blah, blah, blah. And then by later that night, keeping in mind California's 2 hours behind us,
Yeah.
that's when I saw pictures of like the Bay Bridge, the images that still stand out of a car sliding down into the below.
Yeah.
So it was just that's the one that I'll never forget, that earthquake in the World Series.
Yeah.
I mean that. You ever been in an earthquake?
No.
No. Okay. I'm just
I
curious if
haven't.
you've ever been in one.
No.
So yeah, Haiti in the '89 series.
Yeah. Yeah, it was something. I'll never forget that, and I'll never forget just it was amazing. Let me put it this way. If you were in a place and there was no work, there's very little food, and you probably lost your house because so many buildings fell down to the ground and were just rubble. That you were living in a tent with no floor in it, and it was just beginning to be the wet season in July, so huge rains would come through and wash through the bottom of the tent.
Yeah, worse than Detroit.
Yes, worse than Detroit. Yeah, and there's some bad gangs there. It's not a safe place to be. I had to be with a group, and we would ride in the back of a truck and kind of obscured from everybody and all of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it even safe to fly in and out?
Yeah, it was safe
it?
to. I mean, the runway was fine.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
like-
they have the one airport in Port-au-Prince, and the runway was fine. It's a very short runway, but it's okay. I mean, it handled the plane fine, and all of that. But even the presidential palace, partially crumbled to the ground, which was pretty crazy. But I would say, despite all of that, and having no money, almost no food, a lot of people going hungry, having no place to live, lousy tents, mud running through, everything, still, and many people dying, Don't forget that. It was over 3,000 people that died in that. They were one of the most joyful people I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah. People were smiling and just happy to be alive, I think. Yeah.
Incredible.
And they were very thankful. Their metro transit system. They're like trolleys that they call the tap taps, or they're buses, little buses or whatever. You just kind of hop on, hop off, whatever. Almost all of them said "Merci, Yesu" on the front. Thank you, Jesus. Despite all of that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I don't see us being that kind of people as Americans.
No, I mean, if we don't, people in America, if they don't get what they want for lunch, they've got to take a depression pill.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that changed my life. I mean, I was working for corporate America when I left. When I came back, I knew that I had to get out of corporate America. I mean, I knew that, but from that point on, I made that a goal, because it was just terrible. What I had to get up and do every day just felt meaningless. And I couldn't do it anymore because it felt completely and utterly meaningless. And as soon as I got back into the States and we landed at Miami Airport and went through customs, I just saw all these entitled Americans that were crabby about this and trying to budge to the front of the line and this and that. And it's like, you know what? You try spending a week where I just was. I don't know.
I know a lot of crappy people, so it's just, yeah. I mean, sometimes we don't realize how easy our lives can be.
Yeah.
I tell you what, you talk to anybody who grew up in the Depression around here.
Yeah.
If they're, most of them are not with us anymore, but that's light years from where we are now.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And even that is worlds better than what Haiti went through in 2010. So.
I can understand how that would be life-saving. And I'll tell you what, corporate America can kiss my ass anytime. Not a fan. Not a fan. And you know what, Jay? Here's the sad part.
Yes.
I defend the right to make a living, and I don't think government should be in the business of deciding how much money somebody makes and things like that. But I'll tell you what, I've soured on corporations and big business. Yeah. Like I've soured on big government and big labor and big anything. They just all, unfortunately, when you see them work hand in hand with all the corrupt people we have in this nation, it's just, I can't defend it.
Well, and here's the difference. As conservatives, we used to believe in the power of business, that business should be able to choose what it does, that government shouldn't be able to tell business within certain parameters what to do. You don't want businesses doing illegal things or anything like that. And so we always thought, unfortunately, we've gotten to a place where the free market doesn't speak because government and business have got into bed with each other. And
there is no free market.
There is no free market. Everything it's a planned economy.
Yeah, and I want to say too, it's not so much supporting. I support the idea of entrepreneurialism.
Yes,
that's the spirit that we've lost in this nation.
Absolutely.
Is entrepreneurs, and we're told to go get a job, to go get health insurance, to go get a 401k. We're told to settle. Yes. I believe that the message is to settle for something and not really go after what your dreams are. America's where dreams come true. So there's a lot of things that go into that. Go get a loan for a house and be a dreamer. Well, you could get it. So there's, the deck is stacked against people who do things like that.
Yep.
And there is no free market economy. There's no free market economy at all. It is a planned economy. It is an economy where oligopolies, shall we say, give the sort of the illusion of choice.
Right.
And that really, of course, is baloney.
I mean, perfect example is you got a guy like Hunter Biden that has a quote unquote company, gets favors with the Chinese businesses that are tied into the Chinese Communist Party, who then get favors from Hunter with his dad, who's in the American government. That's one example. The other example is where you have what's going on in Davos, where you have all of these companies and government people getting together and deciding how they're going to move forward in the world.
Yeah, that's why corporations, they've become very political. They've become very, they latch on to agendas. You can add foundations in there too, who move all their money with no tax accountability. Mm-hmm. And guess who wrote that law?
Right.
So, yeah, it's awful. And I'll tell you what, though, it is hard. It is hard to work and try to get jobs with places that aren't somehow involved in one of these deals. I mean, it's not so simple. I mean, I wish I could do it myself, but anywho, Jay, you want to talk about things I don't like?
Haven't we been doing that already?
Yeah, but let's double down on we haven't talked about county government for a long time.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds boring, but let me tell you something. Jay, you and I never make anything boring.
Right.
And, of course, it's legislative time. And, of course, they're moving at rapid speed over there at the Capitol.
Yes.
But, you can't leave the counties behind because they got their legislative agenda. And maybe it's a good show today to educate the folks on what they're planning on doing in your name.
Right.
With their legislative agenda for 2023. Now, I want to say something here. And this is something that sort of drives me insane about local governments and their relationship to state and federal governments.
Yeah.
Jay, you and I both know that counties, have certain core things that they have to do.
Yes.
Some of them are mandated by the state. Actually, almost all of them are mandated by the state of Minnesota. State of Minnesota.
Yes.
They're to provide public safety, of course, with an elected sheriff. They are to set up courts, the county courts, with, of course, an elected county attorney. They are responsible for assessing and collecting of property taxes in this and distributing them.
Right.
They're responsible for roads. And then the other thing, the big thing, the thing that has gotten out of control is health and human services.
Yes.
Now, that sounds like a lot. And counties, by being forced, I don't like to use that term, but having it the law that they have to do X, Y, and Z, it's only natural that the people who make those laws bring funding to carry that out. If I were the owner of a baseball team and I told my general manager to go sign a bunch of free agents, and I didn't give him any money to do it, it's going to be difficult for the general manager to do.
Right.
On the other hand, and I'm going to have a lot of hands here.
Okay.
On the other hand, having our tax dollars go to St. Paul and then get distributed out to counties is an extremely inefficient way to fund anything.
Yes.
The idea you're going to take money, send it to a central place, and they're going to spit it out, quote, equally.
After they take their cut, by the way.
Of course, their administration and all that is the merry-go-round of money, as we've always called it, is not a very good way to fund anything. So I'm sort of two minds on these things. And there's federal things, too, that counties do. I mean, especially in health and human services. So what say you, Jay? I mean, if the state and federal governments are going to tell counties that they have to do some things, are they obligated then to fund aspects of those things? The local governments, I mean, they quite rightly can say that they are not getting what they probably should in some cases.
Right.
Or is the state and federal government become the boogeyman that they can blame everything on? What where do we even start here to unpack all that?
Well, you and I both know, and we've talked about this a lot before, where there's these unfunded mandates that come from the federal government and the state government down to counties, where it's like, we want you to do this. We got money for this. Here's some, here's $5 million to get you going. And then once they get going, there's no more money, and they got to pay for this for forever.
Right. Let me give you an example. Take something like MNsure is a
Yes.
very good example. And you could use something on the federal level like S-chip,
Right.
which again all falls under Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
That the dirty work of that is done by your local government.
Right.
They're the ones who do all the administrating. They do all the paperwork, and they figure out who's eligible and blah, 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 blah. Now, at the same time, the needs, this is part of the problem too. Every county's different.
Right.
The need for transit, for example, in Hennepin County and Yellow Medicine County, I'm going to guess aren't the same.
No, I would guess not.
So again, how does the state or the feds, how do they spit out money fairly when no two counties are like snowflakes? None of them are alike.
Right. Although some counties have a lot more snowflakes than others.
That's true. We live in one with a lot. I wish that would melt.
Yes. That is hard. And I guess you have to kind of look at, how many people come in and out of your hospitals every year. What's the median income? I mean, there's a lot of math involved in figuring that out. And
so we get to more formulas that nobody can understand. Nobody can make heads or tails of.
right.
Back to that.
Well, any time that you have millions and billions of dollars that are being circulated around, it is so easy for corruption. It's so easy to misspend money. It's so easy to misappropriate, we needed to spring for some $5,000 hammers. You've heard those stories. With
Sure.
with the military.
It's the not having needs and wants.
Right.
There's certain things the county needs to do.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And there's certain things they don't have to do.
Right.
And they don't want to have to make those choices.
Now, should they have a safety net for those that can't afford medical insurance? Yeah, they probably should.
I guarantee you they are eligible for some program somewhere.
Yeah.
All they need to do is look hard enough.
Right.
I mean, seriously.
There are a lot of programs.
There's a gazillion of them. And again, should the county be there to help somebody get on one who needs it? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But again, it's the whole idea that you're going to equalize something, just the whole falseness that you're going to equalize something by having the state spit out a formula.
Right.
Is such a line of thinking that has to change in the state.
Absolutely it does.
I mean, with education, with LGA, with local street aid, there is no way with the better solution to deal with it. But do the locals want that responsibility or not? They'll say they do, but do they really?
Right. And I was going to ask you how you feel about that, where, it's going to change the taxation, especially in some of the rural counties. You look like at, let's say Pine County, kind of stuck in the middle there between the cities and Duluth. What if they had to, collect all the taxes from their own people for, the roads, the health and human services, all of the things that they do, rather than, getting the old
free money,
whatever from the state.
Well, again, I guess my answer to that is that can't happen unless the state removes the mandates on them. In other words, if Pine County doesn't have to do what the state tells them, then yes, that would be ideal. Because to me, what that would force government to do, it would force the needs and the wants.
Right.
Pine County wouldn't be able to, do 4 or 5 things that maybe they want to do, but they don't need to do. I don't know what that is. It's kind of like going back to counties taking care of county roads, cities taking care of city roads. Now, you might say, well, that's not fair. But the way we do it now isn't fair either. Putting something in a bonding bill, that's not fair. It's not fair that one community gets something paid for and the next community doesn't. That's not fair either.
Right.
So ultimately, the local accountability is removed when the state and the feds are slinging money left and right to count. Now, again, that does not mean that you can't have aid for something or you can't have projects being done. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I think basic functions, we talk about this at city level all the time, Jay, that basic functions should be the city collects and the city does.
Right.
If you're dependent on the state for your police department, that is not good fiscally or any other way you could possibly think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it just isn't. That is not good. But if your needs are met, and no matter what happens, you can keep those needs. I mean, you get zero money from anybody.
Right.
Your needs are funded. That's where I think we need to go with counties as well. The problem is they have no incentive to do that.
Right.
Because they want the state and federal government to blame.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that drives me nuts. And I'm going to include the School Boards Association in this as well. They complain about the very things they used to advocate for.
Yeah.
School districts advocated for all-day kindergarten. Now they bitch about it. They advocated for alternative learning centers. Now they complain about it. They advocate. Go down the list of things that they wanted. Whoa, you got to fund this and you got to fund this. Then they get it.
Yeah.
And then they whine about it.
Right.
So you have to take both sides with a grain of salt here.
Yeah. Well, they want it, but they want the money that goes with it. And then when they don't get the money any longer and they have to come up with it, they don't like it so much.
Yeah, but they don't do anything to reduce the size of what they're doing. It's sort of like, I'll give you an example. This is kind of a bad example. But look, I love parks, okay?
Yeah.
We should have parks, blah, blah, blah. But how many cities and counties sit down and say, okay, how much parkland do we need? How much parkland can we afford to maintain?
Right.
Because you got to remember, those parks are land that's taken off the tax rolls.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have to maintain it. You have to clean it. You have to,
even for big state parks where there's lots of woodlands and stuff like that, you still have to make sure that you're taking care of the land, because you could have all this underbrush that ends up starting a big forest fire. You got to take care of that.
Yeah, exactly. So that discussion never happens either.
Right.
It never happens. What's the need versus the want? What can we have? What can we not have? Because I look at their legislative agenda, and folks, you can find this at their website, Association of Minnesota Counties. This is where county commissioners get together and play a dual role. They serve two masters here.
Right.
Which, of course, they can't do. We just talked about this. County aid / property tax relief. Now, I got some ideas for counties if they want property tax relief.
Yeah.
How about reducing your spending? Wouldn't that cause property tax relief? Just asking. Wouldn't that, you spent less, we'd have to collect less, right?
Right.
Well, of course, that's not what they're talking about. And they have a bunch of gobbledygook clearly written by lawyers or somebody else. I like to read the stuff on the side. AMC, that's not the movie theater, that's the Association of Minnesota Counties, supports legislative action to provide comprehensive property tax relief through an increase in county aid. So here's how they're going to do it. They want to reduce taxes, not by reducing expenses, but by getting more free money from the state. So if the state gives them an extra $100, they'll probably keep 80 of it and reduce $20 of, I'm just throwing numbers out there.
Right.
So that's how they want to cut property taxes.
By getting more money from
We'll just get money from a different source. Wow. It's that blatant.
Reduce taxes by getting more taxes from somewhere else.
Isn't that our money too? I'm sorry. Who pays the state last time I looked? They don't have a Federal Reserve. Now, here's another one I like. I love reading about housing. That's because housing, literally, again, if this were a college paper, this would be plagiarism here.
Right.
I'm not going to read what's in the. It's the same thing I read everywhere. And again, I don't think you can apply this to every county. This is the other thing that is there a housing shortage in Aiken County, in Houston County, in Kuchiching? Maybe, but I'm guessing it's different on a different scale.
Yeah, they would say that there is.
Yeah,
because there's not enough rentals. There's not enough apartments. There's not enough luxury apartments.
By housing, they're being very broad.
There's not enough assisted living. This
Senior
is what they're talking
buildings.
about, right? There might be enough housing stock, and a lot of times in these cities, we do see that there is available housing stock. There are available rental stock, but it's these other types of homes or other types. They're not looking for starter homes. They're looking for houses that are in the $500,000 mark. They're not looking.
That's affordable, of course.
Right. Deeply affordable. Not enough deeply affordable rental units. And so it's not so much that there is a lack as there is, you just want more of these other things.
Yeah, and you want somebody else to do it for you.
Right.
AMC supports additional state investments. Of course, anytime you hear the word investment, cross that out and write spending.
Yes.
Across the housing spectrum, but not limited to workforce and affordable housing, senior housing, and emergency and transitional housing supports, but not limited to that.
Housing supports, is that called a basement?
No, I think that's the transitional stuff, like the oh god, I'm trying to think of what, like people who are homeless and all that, trying to it's or people coming out of the loony bin, or people coming out of
halfway
jail,
houses, things like that.
I think that's transitional housing.
Group homes,
technically what that's called.
Sober houses, that kind of stuff.
Senior housing. There's just not enough, and we need more state investment.
It's funny. We had this discussion, and I hadn't read what it was over on the right hand column there, and it just kind of said what I already said.
Yeah, I know.
That's how many times we've read through
That's
these
the plagiarism.
things. Oh.
We need a college professor in here to lecture these people that they got to be a little different once in a while. Now here's the other thing.
Yeah.
Why is government the only place to look to do these things, by the way? Why is it that we can't use churches? We can't use charities. We can't, why is government seen as the only institution that can provide any kind of help no matter what?
Well, the answer.
Food shelves.
Right?
There's a million different things that you could partner with to do these things.
Well, it's a couple fold here. First of all, the churches aren't stepping up and doing what they ought to do. Some are, but most aren't.
Really? Okay.
Some of that is because there's a lack of attendance. People are staying home ever since COVID. Attendance is down across the majority of churches.
Is it? Okay, I didn't know that.
Some have grown and some have stayed about the same, but there's a lot fewer people that are going to church now than before COVID still.
Is COVID the reason, or
It's an excuse.
Yeah.
You know, I think it just feels a lot better to stay home on a Sunday morning, you know, and maybe they watch via live stream, but they don't go in, you know, which, sorry to say, I mean,
You got Robert Tilton on stream. You know,
in the Bible, it's very clear about don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, because he knew that as soon as we start to separate, we start to do our own thing, and then the things that are important to him don't get done. That's just the way it works. So that's one of the reasons. And the second reason is because government wants to replace God anyways in our society. And so they don't want you looking to the churches. They want you looking to government. And so they're more than happy to increase taxes or just print more money, whichever the case is, what they can do, in order to get you looking to government to supply your needs instead of looking to the church.
I can't disagree with that. Oh, do I have to read transportation? Dedicated funding and bonding. Now, I'm going to surprise people maybe a little bit, because again, I don't fall down the political right-left anymore. Dedicated funding is something I have money. I want everything going to one place, but I got to tell you,
Yeah.
dedicated funding has its place.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. And I'm going to use franchise fees as an example here.
Okay.
Every time a city implements franchise fees, what do they say?
Well,
How do they sell it?
is that this is free money that can be used for fixing roads.
Right. However,
Yes.
where does that money go?
It
The
goes into
general,
the general
fund.
Yeah.
So there's no accountability as to saying this tax is going for this project, for these purposes.
Yeah.
This is what this project costs. I think it needs to be done with sunsetting. That's me.
Yeah.
Okay. See, and that's the problem when you don't have that. When you don't have a dedicated fund, then the money just can get spent on anything that the government wants it to, and that's when the wheels come off. Now and again, I hate using the term "in a perfect world" because it's just totally pie in the sky. This will never happen.
Right.
But in a perfect world, the money could go into one place, and you trust the people to administer it and do what they say they were going to do.
Right.
I don't trust anybody.
No. Instead of living in a perfect world, we live in a dystopian world.
My goodness, we live in a world that's just the opposite of dystopian or whatever you said.
Dystopian?
Yeah.
It
Not
would be the
dystopian.
opposite.
Yeah.
Because utopian would be the opposite, and that would be like everything's perfect.
Okay.
So dystopian, we're living in like 1984 mixed with Brave New World mixed with,
Right. And
Atlas Shrugged. So it's
in 1984.
Yes.
I want to say, I'm going to read a little bit of what kind of the gobbledygook here. AMC supports a statewide integrated multi-modal transportation system that keeps Minnesota competitive in a global marketplace. Well, you know what? If you want that, if you want to be competitive in a global marketplace, you do not want a multimodal transit system. I'm sorry, but bikes are not going to get the goods to the store. Okay?
Right.
They don't deliver the things to your house.
yeah.
Might deliver a Jimmy John's, but that's about it.
Right. And I don't really understand this statement. You're looking at multimodal transportation system for a county or statewide because you want to be competitive globally. But aren't you worried about the state or the county? You're not you're not going to have your own airport where you're flying Airbuses full of cargo over to Paris. It's that's a company thing. A company would do that and work through a place like MSP, like FedEx has a ton of planes that go in and out of MSP, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's not. I don't understand the whole global marketplace, because when you're driving, you're not going to drive to China. Yeah. You're going to have to go through other states to even get to the coast. We've got waterways. We use boats rather well along the chain of the Great Lakes or down the Mississippi or other things like that to be able to get to.
We still use rail. Yeah, I don't get what they mean either. But
our trucking system, yeah.
But the next sentence is almost worse. With over 90% of Minnesota's road mileage under local jurisdiction and about 80% of bridges on the local system, the gap between projected funding and the amount of money needed to adequately maintain and improve roads and bridges is significant. Okay, so stop that for a minute.
Okay.
If 90% are under local jurisdiction,
yeah,
what is the role of the state then in that? Now, see, again, this is where you have the state collecting the gas tax.
Right.
And then again, trying to spit it out, quote unquote, equally, which is impossible.
But how much of that is used for local roads? I mean, when you look at a city, generally,
it's not supposed to be any.
Right. When they're redoing the roads, generally speaking, the people that live in the city are taxed either along the way or with an assessment at the time,
or a bond
at the time of construction. Now, I don't understand.
Well, there's the municipal street aid program, which is part of that too.
That's for a different type of road,
typically,
specifically for a state aid road.
Right, but 9% of your gas tax goes into that fund.
Yes.
Just an FYI on that.
Just so they can put a stupid sidewalk on one side of the road.
Well, but again, that's where they all apply for the funds. They all apply for the free money.
Right.
But again, I don't understand what they're saying. They basically say, okay, counties and cities want control over these roads, but state, we want you to pay for them.
Right.
Isn't that what they're saying?
Right.
Without saying it?
Now, where it gets, I think, a little trickier is outstate Minnesota in the townships, because some of that is county roads, some of that is state highways, some of those are local roads, and your tax base is a lot lower in a township.
Yeah,
and so how do
townships, I believe, are treated differently under that. But yeah. I think the county gets aid on. Based on road mileage, I believe. I don't remember how that works, but they get a lot of money in transportation. I know that. And quite frankly, they get a lot of bonding projects, especially bridge projects. The state ends up footing the bill for all of it.
Right.
Through bonding. It's kind of BS that 80% of bridges are local. That's who's footing the bill. That's not true.
Right.
This statement, I see the E word in here. AMC supports equity in transportation infrastructure through continued comprehensive transportation funding that includes new revenue for roads, bridges, and transit, and a bonding bill that includes funding for transportation-related programs. And it goes on to cite local road improvement program, local bridge replacement program. That's stuff that's in the bonding bill. Local, and they all kind of take turns trying to get money off of that. But look what it says, new revenue.
Yeah.
Is that their backdoor way of endorsing a gas tax hike or a license tab fee hike?
It could be.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, let me say something too about dedicated funding. I want to get back to this on a county level. The wheelage tax. Remember years ago we did a podcast on the wheelage tax and on
Yeah.
county taxes. The wheelage tax implemented was $10 at the time of registration.
Yes.
Then they doubled it to 20. Okay. Again, is that a dedicated fund? Do I know that money is going where the county said it would go? Dedicated funds have kind of have their good parts and their bad parts to them.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just rethinking a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because, you've got all the different buckets and, rather than writing a bond for something when you have the cash over here, I can understand that. On the other hand, you should be saving up cash for the things that that you're going to have to spend money on, and that's part of your whole tax picture when it comes to property taxes. So it's
right. I mean, again, it's the if you're going to be taxed 20 different ways, it's pretty difficult to have accountability there.
Yeah.
Almost impossible.
Right.
So I don't know. Those were kind of some of the things that stuck out to me. But just anytime you see housing, transportation, you just go, ugh, where have I read that before?
Right.
Mental health. Of course, everybody's with their mental health.
Yeah.
AMC supports developing Minnesota's mental health and developmental disabilities continuum of care. What did I just say?
I guess to quote a band from the 80s, Mama, Mama, we're all crazy now. Right?
And here's another thing, too.
We all need a little bit of the...
They support bonding for this as well.
Oh,
bonding dollars should be leveraged to support local government when developing, building, or remodeling facilities. I guess that's facilities to house all the loons. So, I mean, that's just another thing. I mean, housing investments that we already talked about. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, is housing one of those things that is a county job? I mean, I
No.
keep thinking
No,
to
it's
myself,
really not.
I live in Hennepin County.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's not many townships. I don't know if there's any. And the cities already have their own housing
Right.
stuff. Why is Hennepin County involved in housing at all?
Shouldn't be.
I mean, what authority do they have? They have their own housing levy.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they doing? In a county, it may in a rural county, it may be a little different with the townships and things like that. But again, townships, there's not a big need for housing there. So is housing something where the county belongs in at all?
No. It really doesn't. All of your development and all of that is planned at the city level, so the city is in control of what type of housing goes where,
zoning,
how
and
things are zoned, all of that. But there is a lot of pressure that comes from the county, which comes indirectly from the county, ultimately from the Met Council, to have to hit certain numbers based on their population projections. And so that is where a lot of this comes, and where there's some of this free money tied into it, is because you have to be hitting your goals when it comes to the certain types of housing that you can provide, whether that's assisted living, whether that is transitional housing, whether that is affordable housing, deeply affordable housing. You've got to be able to accommodate all of that in your plans, because life cycle housing or equitable housing, that is the goal of the county now, is to make sure that those things are being spread out equitably throughout the county. So it's really not the county's job, but they're making it their job. And I don't know how we, as cities have to push back on that. you know. The problem is when it's coming indirectly through the county from the Met Council, we know that, you know, if the comprehensive plans aren't up to par with what the Met Council wants them to be, that the Met Council has the power to take them to court and force them to create a comprehensive plan that is in line with Met Council projections. So it's almost like you have to create something knowing that you're not going to follow it, and then, you know, have a better mind to go your own way. But that's dangerous, you know, because you don't know, because it's not in writing, that you can actually make that happen.
So it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't know how you get the county out of housing, you know. I think they probably believe that they have a right to be involved in it because they can tie it to welfare, which is provided by the county. You know, county provides this
Health and Human
Section 8
Services.
through Health and Human Services. And so...
Yeah, that's true. You know, Hennepin County's been still renting out hotels for the homeless.
Ugh.
Maybe we should go stay in one, Jay, and see just what happens.
No.
I mean, maybe I'll try it. I'll go
Yeah.
have a report here, staying there. What is the deal with broadband? Why is this such a big thing?
Well, that's become the new right.
Yeah,
You know,
the right to the
everybody
internet.
has a right to broadband, whether, you know, even if you live in the most remote township in Minnesota, you should be able to have broadband. Well, I understand why counties say it's an issue, because if people in this day and age aren't able to be connected, they leave for a bigger city.
There's truth to that.
And it's difficult. I mean, if you're running a business out in greater Minnesota, even as a farmer, farmers are sitting in their tractors with their iPad, planning out how they're planting, how they want their machines to run. It's all connected.
It is nowadays. Yeah, it is very much so.
You know, but I think that if we're getting people broadband just so they can, you know, watch the Max Singer or whatever, I'm not really.
No, they
right
want to
with
watch the doubles final at the Australian Open,
that.
or some golf, that AT&T Chrysler Classic, or some professional bowling.
Right.
Got to get the lottery numbers. I don't know. I mean,
Preakness, yeah.
got to get that Netflix. I don't know. I mean, I do think there's a need to be connected, but again, what's the local responsibility for that, and
Yeah.
what's the state and federal responsibility for that?
Exactly. I mean, if there was a market for it, why couldn't one of these existing companies or a startup for a new company provide that?
because they're all waiting for the free money.
Yeah.
The companies would do it, but they know if the government pays for it, they got an endless pocket of money coming.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the reason. So, I mean, it's in their best interest to wait. But I mean, to me, you know, so many areas, it's very few parts that are not connected right now.
Yeah.
It's not many. Okay. So the idea again that we're going to, that the state and the feds should come in and pay for your internet access,
Yeah.
you know, that's a pretty questionable priority among counties to me. Just to me.
Well, you're right. I mean, it is because government got involved and there's all this free money that the businesses don't want to handle it anymore. And
again, too, are you playing favorites?
right.
You know, the company that wants to work with the government gets the free.
Of course.
And so again, there's no free market.
Right. Exactly, because any of the other companies are going to have to pay for their own infrastructure, or they're going to have to lay their infrastructure. And it's ridiculous. And let me say this, Greater Minnesota, you may not have the broadband to be interconnected and all that. you're probably better off with what's coming down the pike. If they can't find you as easy, if you're able to just remain a little more anonymous for a little more time, I would probably take that.
Well, and also, I mean, it all has to be high speed.
Yeah.
You know, that's another demand from these counties. It's all high speed, no Windows 95.
Right.
Everything's going to be as good everywhere as possible. And again, I mean, whether that's a need or a not, or whether, you know, again, why don't these counties take the lead in some of this? They don't have the Health and Human Services expenses that you have in Ramsey or Hennepin.
Right.
You know, I mean, they don't have a lot of the other infrastructure too. I'm sure the courts are not as busy, and you don't have as many assessors and all that. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
There should be something, and I think maybe that's where the state and the federal government should create some incentives for them to do it themselves rather than take it over and then give this endless drip, drip, drip to every dang county on the sun. I mean, come on, get a little innovative here. I know innovation, corporations and government is where innovation goes to die.
Yeah.
But, you know, in counties, if counties spent half the time doing what they're whining about,
right,
rather than advocating for it, maybe they'd have it by now.
It's possible. I mean, you know, Lac-Qui-Parle County, it doesn't have the same demands on it that Anoka County has.
Well, it's
it's
they're never gonna.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Screw your broadband. That's just all I can say with that.
How are they going to watch reruns of the Jetsons?
I don't know. Get Channel 8. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either.
Of course, it's not just the state, Jay, that they want stuff from.
Yeah.
It's the feds as well.
Oh, really? You don't say.
Does that surprise you?
No. Things that would surprise me in government are cutting taxes, getting rid of laws to create more freedom. Leave the churches alone. Those things would surprise me.
I always pay attention to what's the first thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's kind of like, Jay, when you look at like the Bill of Rights, is it a coincidence that like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, is it a coincidence that that's number one? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that pretty much kind of lays the groundwork for everything else. You know, if you don't have freedom of free speech, freedom of religion, and all that kind of stuff, you know, whether a soldier can quarantine in your house or not just isn't as important. Okay? So when I look at the first thing and it says jail healthcare, I kind of go, what in the hell? That's priority number one.
Yes.
AMC supports legislative effort to restore benefits under the Social Security Act for incarcerated individuals. So you're in jail, you make sure that Social Security check is getting to that guy.
Yes, absolutely.
That convicted rapist, we can't screw him out of his Social Security.
Needs to get his cigarettes.
Yeah, he can't do that with the $20 he gets folding underwear. He's got to get the Social Security benefits. I mean, come on, really?
Yep.
And Social Security's a bankrupt program as it is. All it does is ensure people retire poor.
I would agree with that.
This is something that drives me nuts. This workforce stuff. AMC supports additional funding, more money for federal workforce development programming, increasing their impact and ensuring workers can participate and enter in the workforce.
Well, maybe they should do that by promoting like tech schools.
Yeah, how about don't we pay for people to go like graduate from high school? Like K through 12.
Yeah, we invest 12, 13 years into them.
And then, you know, we have community colleges, tech schools. Don't we kind of do that already?
Yeah. But we're pushing everybody to the universities, you know, where people aren't going to the tech schools. People aren't going to the trade schools.
Well, and here's another statement. Here's another statement in here. Workers left the labor force due to a number of factors, including child care issues, retirement, fear of COVID, and have not returned. No, that isn't what happened.
No.
That's not what happened. Okay? People changed their minds. When their jobs were shut down, they either got jobs in a different industry,
Yeah.
they decided to be a stay-at-home mom or whatever and not go back to work.
Yeah.
Maybe they learned what their kid was learning in school. Okay. People got different jobs. People got jobs at home.
Some people got big government checks and decided they could make a living at that.
Exactly. But people changed because of the insane policies put on by our government.
Yes.
It had nothing to do with anything right here. It had nothing to do with their child care. There's gazillions of child care providers out there, okay?
Yeah.
That's nonsense. People just rethought their personal situations.
Mm-hmm.
And we have not adjusted as an economy since then.
You're right.
So what has to change now, and again, I go back to this. The solution is not a worker training program, okay? The solution is you identify what the shortages are, and you have to communicate that to the public and tell people how to get there.
Yeah.
If there's a shortage of truck drivers, how do we fix that? We don't fix it by getting federal aid and repeating it over and over.
Yes.
We fix it by, getting people to understand how to get a license.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, if the money went there, that would be different. Like, why don't we take that aid and pay for a bunch of people to get trucking training, get their license?
That would
Don't
be
give
smart.
it to the county. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't give it to them.
Or these asylum seekers that are coming over by the thousands every day.
I mean,
Yeah.
The idea that we're going to give the county money to figure out how to create jobs. When does the government figure out how to create jobs?
Never. That's not a function of government.
And again, I mean, I go back to, here's another thing. Farm Bill reauthorization. AMC supports reauthorization and updates to all chapters of the Farm Bill, which expire in September of 2023. That's because the federal budget expires on September 30th.
Right.
This Farm Bill helps Minnesota counties make critical investments in infrastructure, economic development, nutrition, and conservation. Blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't. Farm subsidies have destroyed the family farm.
Yes, they have.
They have killed the family farm.
Yes.
The subsidies aren't going to them. They are going to the absentee landowner.
Yes, they are.
So a renewal of that, all that does is help the corporate farms, and it further destroys the family from the heritage of this nation. Has been destroyed by our own government.
Yes.
I don't want any frickin' farm.
Part of that's on purpose, though, because they want to make that land unavailable and force people into urban areas.
Yeah, that's true. They don't. They don't want that. Yeah.
Federal government has the 30 by 30 and the 50 by 50 plans where they want to buy back 30% of the land in America by 2030, 50% by 2050, and take it off of like the area that's available for humans to be able to utilize. They want it to be federal land.
Can you imagine that 50% of the land owned by the federal government?
It's nuts. It's just nuts.
Now that doesn't even include what state and local governments own.
Absolutely, because that's over and above that.
Because I mean, and I'm not saying they're owning too much, but schools, city halls, community centers,
City parks,
police stations, they're all owned by government.
Absolutely.
I don't know that cities are excessive in that, but they all own property.
Absolutely, they do.
So that could be 60% in reality.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Think of a time in this country, Jay. We had like the Homestead Act, and we had back in like Jackson's time when we were creating space to go move west.
Right.
Everything was about getting it out of the government's hands,
encouraging people to buy land.
And now we've moved in the completely opposite direction. Individuals to own nothing.
Right. Well, that's the plan. By 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy.
I wonder where they are right now.
Where who is?
How much of the land today is owned by the federal?
I don't know. I wonder if that's Googleable.
Depends on the source.
Right. Well, you'd have to look at some sort of lefty thing like
Land Institute or something.
Yeah, something like that, or the Wildlands Project or something like that. They would probably honestly tell you how much it is because it's not enough and they're trying to get there.
Well, according to Wikipedia, and the source for this, let me think. I'll try to get a source for this. And now keep in mind, much of the federal land today is owned in, say, like Alaska,
Nevada,
Utah.
West, yeah.
I mean, so this is a little tricky.
But I mean, there are plenty of federal
28% is about the going.
So they're pretty
close.
close to 30 by 30.
Yeah, and I don't know
Wow.
if not sure if this has increased since a certain amount of time.
I mean, if that's true, I mean, you think about 30 by 30, really. I mean, but
Yeah,
they're
that's an
almost
ESPN
there.
show.
Yeah, they're almost there.
Yeah, most of it's in 11 states, but yeah.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's the percentage, and they want that, and then they can work from there.
And the great thing about government is they're patient.
Oh, yes.
They will I call it paper cutting us to death.
Yeah.
You know, back in the 60s, the people who created Medicare wanted government run healthcare.
Yeah.
They're okay with doing it incrementally.
Yeah.
They don't mind if somehow you keep going toward that goal. So look for very slow, like you say, 50 by 50 over 20 years. That's a long time. Actually, 27 years from now. That's a long time. And to just slowly paper cut us and get a little more and a little more and a little more and a little more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 61% of Alaska is owned by the federal government. Most of it's in 11 states. Nevada at 79.6.
Yeah. That
Is why do they
huge
own
amount.
so much in there?
I don't know. There's just not a lot of stuff there, I think, is part of it.
Where's Area 51? New Mexico?
Yeah, that's in New Mexico, I believe. So there's a lot there. Utah, there's quite a bit, I think, in, I assume, like Wyoming.
Idaho. Yeah.
You've got big chunks of land like Yellowstone National Park and, things like that.
That's bigger than a couple states, actually.
I know.
And I love Yellowstone.
Yeah.
But you have other Glacier National Park is
that's
right
out
by there. The Tetons, you can kind of see that from Yellowstone in the southern part there. So there's now look, I mean, should the federal government own some land? Yes. Should some things be preserved?
You've gotta have
sure.
military bases. You've got to have.
There's a legitimate case.
Whatever.
They have
Yeah.
legitimate functions. But 50% of the land, I mean, imagine. So that means half the country's off limits
Right.
to live on or anything. You can't live on federal land.
No, you can't. And if the BLM has their way, not Black Lives Matter, but the Bureau of Land Management, they'll be able to shut that down for ranchers to be able to use that land to feed their cattle. And if they do that, then they can start forcing some of these alternative meats and things like that, because there just won't be the meat available.
Oh, that's just so nasty.
I know.
I mean, Spam's bad enough. I know that's in your fridge right now, but
no, it's not. It's not. I mean, it's not terrible if it's fried up in a pan, but to eat it out of the can, like I've seen people do it. It's just
I have
good.
too.
No good. But I would still
they got a
rather
cert.
I would still rather eat Spam than an Impossible Burger or a Bug Burger. I'll tell you that right now.
How do they make that? What do they make?
Spam?
No, a bug burger.
Well, I'm sure you just
Artificial bugs?
no, they're real bugs. I'm sure you just crush them up and I don't know. How
Grind
you do
them
it.
into ground bugs? Oh,
I don't know what you do.
it's animal cruelty,
Yeah.
ain't it?
It should be. I don't know. It's like driving down the highway with your mouth open.
Oh,
You get a couple that way.
nasty, just nasty.
Yeah.
I worry about that. I worry about the food supply. mean,
I do
really
too. We're in bad shape. You know, chickens aren't laying eggs, and so the price of eggs are skyrocketing, and they're continuing to go up. Florida right now is having an orange shortage, which is affecting their ability to produce orange juice and things like that.
Which, of course, drives up the cost.
Right, and so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
What is with the egg thing? Is that I have heard bird flu blamed for that. I have heard, which makes no sense. Do chickens get bird flu?
Tucker had a guy on that said it has something to do with the feed. He changed the feed for his chickens, and he's getting eggs again. Like they haven't been laying eggs.
Huh.
I don't know.
Well, just Jay, maybe considering all the eggs you lay every day, maybe we should have you do it.
I would never run out.
Actually,
would I?
they're watching the Timberwolves. Maybe they could lay some eggs. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, the times we live in are weird. But getting back to counties, I mean, you know, like I said at the beginning, there is a legitimate beef that they have with having mandates put on them. But at the same time, I still think it's more about having the boogeyman than it is the real truth.
Right.
I mean, I live in Hennepin County. Come on. Count how many things Hennepin County does. You can find a million of them that really aren't necessary.
Right.
So the idea that they can't function without county or federal money, they just don't want to make the tough choices. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. If you stick to your core things and you don't veer off of that, then your core things should be pretty elementary.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Area 51 is in Nevada.
Oh, it's in Nevada.
Yes.
Is it close to New Mexico?
It must be Lincoln County.
Huh.
It is pretty close to New Mexico and Arizona, actually.
Yeah.
But
I was trying to remember from, watching the movie Independence Day. That's,
I want to go to Area 51.
yeah. I don't know how close can you get?
It's pretty bad. I've actually seen shows where there's like a shoot to kill within a certain amount of time.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Get beyond a point, you could be shot with no warning.
Wow.
So something's going on there. I don't know what. You know, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I got ideas on what goes on there.
Yeah.
I don't buy that it's nuclear testing. I don't know what we're testing anymore.
Right.
We got every nuclear weapon we could want. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think it's probably like, new planes and, technology around that kind of stuff.
Put it to you this way. Whatever the worst thing is in the back of your mind, times it by 10, and that's probably what's going on. If you just want to know.
I'm sure Hunter already gave the Chinese delegation a tour through
probably.
Area 51 anyway.
Probably, but I come back to this.
Yes.
I can understand the government can keep some secrets, and I get that.
And they should.
Yeah.
Keep some.
Exactly. But what's going on in a place like Area 51, I'm an American taxpayer.
Yeah.
And I believe I'm entitled to know. I don't need to know how that's being done. They don't have to share it with the Chinese or the Russians.
Right.
But don't I have a right to know what's being done in my name?
Yeah, I think to a degree you do. We want to know, that there's not gain of function, testing happening, not at Area 51, but anywhere under our name. That our tax money isn't going for things like that, isn't going for things like gender reassignment, isn't going for abortion, isn't going for, there are certain things where it crosses a line and we should know that it's not happening.
According to the CIA, by the way, the correct name for the facility is Homey Airport.
Really? I haven't heard that.
I've never heard that either. I like Area 51.
I do too.
I think they got aliens there. They got spacecraft.
I don't know. Wasn't like the whole Incredible Hulk thing that happened somewhere like that, didn't it? I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, they got a lot. Whatever the case, I don't buy. I don't buy. Whatever our government says, I don't believe them.
Yeah, I don't either.
You do too. You buy anything they say.
Nope. And that's not just the federal government. That's down to local government, unfortunately. But
I can understand that.
So all these things that they want to do, I mean, it's...
Yeah, I mean, again, they have a federal pay. You can go through the list, of nonsense. But, they want all the free money, then they're going to start whining about it the second they get it. I mean, it's the endless merry-go-round of money.
Right.
And you're never going to come up with a formula that's going to make things equal. You're never going to come up with anything like that. What we got to figure out is how we can get city governments doing city things, counties doing county things, state doing state things, which that hasn't happened since before Henry Clay's American system.
Yeah, and no regional government.
Yeah.
Just none.
Yeah, I mean, we're still going in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting because I know like Sherburne County has fought back on we reported on the regional government being set up there having to do with the Mississippi River. And part of the AMC's legislative priorities is the Mississippi River Restoration and Resilience Initiative. And it's going to be a geographic grant program to provide federal planning and funding supports to enhance the river restoration. And so, I didn't know the Mississippi River needed to be restored. It seems like it's doing fine. It hasn't gone anywhere. And secondly, we're going to have to see if Sherburne County can keep its nose out of it.
Well, I wonder if this is making the federal wish list because Sherburne County has been resistant to a lot of this.
All right.
So now they want the feds to come in and
wave their dollars around.
Exactly.
And see what happens. Yeah.
I mean, it could be. So, I mean, that could be in response to that. And besides, how does that end up making the legislative agenda of an association of 87 counties?
Yeah.
There's some serious lobbying going on there.
I mean, Mississippi goes through quite a few counties, but there's a whole lot more that it doesn't go through.
Well, but this is a specific plan here.
Right.
Clearly I think they're taking aim at Sherburne County without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see anything for restoration of the Minnesota River or the Zambroda River or
the Rum
River,
St. Croix, whatever else goes through.
The St. Louis River. St. Louis River is a pretty long river.
Yeah.
So is the St. Croix. I mean, not like the Mississippi, but
no.
Oh.
So that becomes an earmark then, right? In some federal budget bill.
Absolutely.
We'll see what Tina Smith and Amy Klobuchar are doing then, and maybe they'll get the money for that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe
Wouldn't
they
put
will.
it past them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an election happening.
There's always
with,
an election happening.
one of them. So yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, there's a lot of this workforce stuff, health stuff, child well-being. That's a federal thing.
Child well-being.
Yeah, I mean, rural health care. I mean, all the things in this federal counties play a critical role in providing health care services to citizens across the state of Minnesota, including those that live in the rural parts of the state. Well, they're citizens of Minnesota, ain't they? Of course they're included. In some rural Minnesota counties, there are limited options that exist for health care plans and a lack of access to care. Now, what does that mean? You live too far away from the doctor?
Yeah.
I mean, it's limited access. Is that what that means exactly? And by the way, limited health care plans, that's by design.
Yeah.
Look at the exchange. The government can decide who can provide care and who can't.
Right.
Look at the laws of Minnesota that said only nonprofits can provide health care.
Yeah.
We're all limited. I go to a job, I'm taking what they give me.
Right.
How's that different in rural Minnesota than it is here?
For abortion, it looks like you can go anywhere.
Oh,
and
that's
get one.
true.
That's expanded. You can go to the grocery store and get one in the meat department now. So it's it.
Squirt went out at the dollar store.
I don't know, but it's interesting. You see that, and we're sitting here with these eugenicists that they are looking to limit healthcare and when you can get certain things and at what ages you can get certain things, and this Fabian plan that they have to reduce the population because it's bad for the climate, and that's a whole history in and of itself. When you go back and look at the Fabian socialists in England and what they were trying to do back in the early 19th century, the early 20th century, and how that has survived, even though it got pushed underground for the most part. You saw that kind of stuff with in Nazi Germany and all that, with a lot of the medical experimentation that was going on and all of that.
And all the people who got away with it.
Right.
A lot of them got away with it.
A lot of them got away to America. That's where they got away to.
Well,
we brought a lot of scientists here to this country. A lot of them went to South America.
Werner von Braun, who the head of NASA.
Yeah.
Arthur Rudolph. The Soviets grabbed their share.
Yes.
Some of the worst criminals we embraced, called Operation Paperclip. Look it up.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't want to call Nuremberg show trials, but a lot of the guys, we did go look at Joseph Mengele.
Yeah.
Died on a beach in South America. One of the worst, maybe one of the top 5 worst.
But we're doing the same kinds of things to kids today that Mengele did back then. Mm-hmm. We're doing that and worse. And it's being applauded and given grants. And, how much of that stuff is allowed through these county health and human services?
Well, they want all of it to be. I mean, the whole goal is that, again, the whole goal is to have one provider, that be the government.
Right.
And the government will decide who gets what care when, what's a priority, what's not. That's ultimately the goal here, is to get the government in charge of everybody's health care.
Right.
It's kind of like you talk about the digital dollar. Everybody's spending is controlled and seen and allowed and allocated by one source.
Yes.
So that's, again, where we're headed with our health care. I mean, that's very much where we're headed. And, I've said this before, too. I mean, I am... I think everybody should have health insurance, but the way to do it is not to put the government in charge of it.
Right.
That's the opposite of what we should do. It should be out of your job, not seen as a third party. That's where it should go. I mean, that's how we increase the accountability and reduce the cost. But we don't. And I'll tell you what, the big healthcare providers, they don't want healthcare freedom either.
Right.
The corporations don't want it any more than the government does. That's
right.
part of the myth. They're working together to shut others out.
And that's why, like in Minnesota, you don't have a free exchange of healthcare companies that you can go get insurance from. You are limited to a very select group.
Yes, and I should say something about that. My wife and I have our car insurance, the USAA.
Yeah.
They offer health insurance. It's illegal for them to provide it here in Minnesota.
Right.
We can't get it.
Right.
We're members and we can't. State of Minnesota has made that illegal for them to provide health insurance here. Now, I don't understand that.
Right.
Why would they make it illegal for them? That's military.
Yeah. Well, they want you going through their exchanges so that they can control what you can get, what you can't get, when you can get it, when you can't get it. It's that simple. It's this Fabian approach to
it's rationing, and that's what it really is.
Right.
Rationing.
It's rationing, but it's this whole eugenicist. You have these useless eaters in the elderly. We've got to wean them off. You have the infants and the young kids who aren't much used to society. You don't offer them so much. It's these people in the middle that we're concerned about because they can provide a service, which will be fewer and fewer of us the more that artificial intelligence starts to take over.
What's artificial intelligence?
With computers, where they learn on their own, learn to think on their own. They're going to be taking within
most humans I know can't do that.
Yeah, well, there is truth to that, and that puts us at greater jeopardy because within the next, I don't know, by 2050, I assume there'll be a lot of jobs that people just can't get anymore because computers will be doing it.
Yeah, I've heard that my whole life. And
it's actually happening, though, now. Like, a lot of the things we've been hearing about, they're actually starting to put into place.
Yeah, some of them. But
and because technology doubles at a faster rate, the more technology advances, we're going to see things happening a lot faster. So this whole chat GBT thing where, it was a BuzzFeed decided they're going to let chat GPT write all of their articles now so that they don't need to hire people to write articles for them. And it's indistinguishable, seems to have a political bent to the left, go figure. But, yeah.
Really? Huh. I still don't believe you. I think you're wrong.
Have I been wrong about any of this?
Oh, you've been wrong the entire time. Where I will say though,
yes.
One thing that really concerns me are driverless cars.
Yeah.
That concerns me.
See, for me, it does concern me because they could take it over at any moment. But there's a part of me that's like, I could play a show in Kansas City, go into my car when I'm done, and sleep all the way home, and I'll wake up well rested, and it'll be amazing. And I can continue with my
if there's a way to get there in a
right.
driverless car. I mean,
well, and that's the thing that I worry about. I mean, electric cars don't go very far, and B, it's been proven with OnStar, which is a rudimentary form of this, where some entity could just take your car over at any moment. And if it's a driverless car, it can decide where it wants you to go. It can just shut the car down entirely.
how does a driverless car tow my boat and stuff? That's what I'd like to know too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will say this though. I think a form of that's coming. I don't know how you'd work it, but without redoing the roads and redoing everything. But I think driverless cars are going to be here.
Yeah.
But Maybe
will.
not in our lifetimes, but
Well, it was supposed to be possible when G5 rolled out, but in my experience so far, G5 has been
5G?
terrible. Or 5G, yeah.
I
Has been-
support 5G.
It has been terrible.
You can't hold back technology. It's
Well,
never happened.
I'm not saying hold it back. I'm just saying it works like crap.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, I'm not happy with it.
But you're not happy with anything, so
That's not
you
true.
Don't count. You don't count.
I'm happy with things.
Well, I tell you what. After going through that wish list, Jay, and talking about earthquakes and talking about the death of the family farm, we need something from you. You got to give us something here. Styling and profiling, jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling dealing, son of a gun. Sorry, let me finish this Cheeto. Jason Bradley, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. I think. I think that we're in some unprecedented times. There are so many things going on, and whether it's in technology, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in government, whether it's in business, whether it's it is strange days we live in indeed. And I don't know what the right answer is for a lot of this stuff. I see a lot of the wrong things happening. I can tell you when I see it. But how do we overcome that? There's a whole lot of us that I think are overwhelmed by this, and that's understandable. And I think there's a whole lot of us that we just don't really get it, yet. And we don't understand the importance of the day we live in. And there's people that want to run and hide and stick their head in the sand. And there are people that are still playing Team Red, Team Blue, which I don't get. I don't understand that at all, because we are in dangerous times. We've got all this stuff, all the things that we mentioned in the show today. I know some of it sounds way out there. It's all provable. And I don't mean by conspiracy theory websites. I mean, you go to the source. You go to the World Economic Forum, and you can see the videos. You can see articles, talking about how they want to they want to have something in place because they believe that there will be these major cataclysmic cyber attacks within 24 months. You can see what they plan to do, how they plan to use equity, how they plan to use finance, how they plan to use social credit scores. The time has come to stop putting our heads in the sand. A lot of us, we haven't had to fight before. Some of us have. Some of us have been in the military. Some of us have gone overseas and actually, put ourselves in harm's way. Taken shot from the enemy. Having to dodge IEDs. And some of us haven't. But the time has come where we've got to learn. Now, if you're in a place where you're a fighter, you've been in the military, you know what it's like to not give ground to the enemy, and you're thinking that it's time just to pull back. Gather your children and your family around you and just pull back. There could be no greater mistake to be made during these times. We will end up ceding ground to the enemy, and it is because we will have not stood guard on our watch. The time has come, and we need to stand. We're able to do this if we can come together. The only reason we won the Revolutionary War is because enough people came together and they stood, and there were miracles that happened as far as how certain battles got won, how George Washington was saved and made it through. There are actual legitimate miracles. And we need to be able to be in that place. So we're never going to see those miracles if we're just hiding. We got to actually decide to walk in what we've been given to do and never back down. Because when we back down, the enemy fills that land that we vacated. If we back down again, the enemy fills that land that we just vacated. And so we have to stop. We have to take stock of where we're at, of what we know we're responsible to do. And we have to fix this. Now, there's a lot of you out there that know you're supposed to be starting a radio program, doing a podcast, writing a blog, running for office, volunteering at your schools, all of this stuff that would give us more leverage in society. Because you see, it's about filling the different areas of society where we can have influence. We've vacated these for so long, and because of that, things got really bad. So, in our churches, in our families, in our schools, in our government, in media, in arts and entertainment, and in business, we need to be able to form a movement together to go and bring the influence that we have to these places. And we can do it. We just cannot stop short. It's not an option anymore because they're playing for keeps. And they will take anything they can. That's really what it comes down to. You want to just kind of check your thinking? We're here. You can get a hold of us. COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. That's COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. And we will do our best to help you out because we believe in you. We believe in this state. You know, things may be looking bad with everything the state's trying to pass, but let's just remember, they've got a 1-vote majority in the Senate and a 6-seat majority in the House. It can be overcome, but we've got to be purposeful about making sure that we stand. We love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to